This is CBN NewsWatch.
And thank you so much for joining us for this first edition of CBN NewsWatch for Thursday, April 11th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, a major snowstorm hits multiple states, bringing blizzard warnings, along with freezing temperatures and high winds. Democratic presidential candidate Bernie Sanders introduces his Medicare for All bill for a government-run health care plan that eliminates private insurance, while Republicans warn it means higher taxes for the middle class. Vice President Mike Pence responds to Mayor Pete Buttigieg's criticism of his biblical beliefs about homosexuality. And with the Israeli elections over, what will President Donald Trump's Middle East peace plan bring? Could it be dead on arrival? All those stories and more are ahead in this edition of CBN Newswatch. I want to begin, though, with a massive spring storm barreling across the United States. Blizzard warnings have been triggered in at least 6 states, while others are experiencing terrible winds and flooding. Jenna Browder has more on what could be an historic weather event.
This massive spring storm has triggered blizzard warnings in at least 6 states, while others are experiencing high winds and flooding.
Just kind of a pain in the butt storm.
From the Rockies to the Central Plains and Great Lakes, millions of Americans are in its path, the second potential bomb cyclone in less than a month. In Colorado, freezing temperatures and heavy snow prompted the governor to call in the National Guard. Troops rescuing 75 people and 2 dogs overnight from stranded vehicles southeast of Denver. In South Dakota, more than 18 inches have already fallen, and some areas could get another foot. Near whiteout conditions in Minnesota are shutting down highways. And in other parts of the country, they're seeing severe flooding and wind. This dust NATO spotted near Pueblo, Colorado. And a blowing dust warning was issued near Lubbock, Texas, where winds reached up to 70 miles per hour. In the Northwest, a flooding state of emergency in Idaho. Near Eugene, Oregon, the water deep enough for a boat to glide across this highway. And the storm is causing headaches at airports, too. At Denver International Airport, about half of all flights were canceled Wednesday. Jenna Browder, CBN News.
Weather Bell's chief meteorologist Joe Pastardi joins us now. So, Joe, this storm is being called an historic. Is it unusual to see a storm this big this late in the season?
Yes, it's unusual to see this much snow. I mean, we have to really confront the fact that there's an immense amount of cold air around, even though the southeast has remained warm. But it is a spectacular storm where it's snowing, and there's another one coming behind it, and this will go from the Texas Panhandle to Chicago and the Great Lakes in a few days. It won't have as heavy amount of snow, but considering it's going to be snowing April 14th or 15th, I guess it is, further southeast like that. I mean, it's just amazing what's going on with all this. And we do see every once in a while these wild late winters. Let's remember the winter of 12-13 got started slow, but it was like the Energizer Bunny. It kept going and going and going. It even snowed into May in parts of Illinois in 2013, and actually because of that, it snowed early in October. You had the shortest stretch between last snow and first snow in history in some of those areas in the Midwest. So we have seen these immense cold outbreaks before. What's unusual is the lack of tornadic activity yesterday, and I'm not lamenting it. I'm just pointing out that usually storms like this have a lot of tornadoes. But what went on with this was there was so much wind with the storm in the southern and to the south and east of the storm that I think it dissipated the energy that would have gone in to tornadoes. In other words, the atmosphere is always trying to balance itself out. And if you get rid of energy one way, you don't have the need for it the other way. But today, the severe weather aspect in the Midwest has to be paid attention to with this. And then we're going to see it reload in Texas tomorrow. And then on today is Thursday. So Saturday and Sunday, we have severe weather that will be moving through the southern United States, even as that second snowstorm. On the other side, it's cold. So it snows from Amarillo to Chicago and Green Bay and places like that over the weekend.
Joe, we hear the term bomb cyclone. What is that and what's it like?
Folks, you know what you're doing? You're hearing meteorological jargon from 50 years ago or 40 years ago. I was in the weather tower at Penn State. We were always looking for bombogenesis. All right. There's storms like this happen all the time. I mean, in the realm of, let's say, I just referred to a situation at Penn State where I was looking February 5th, 1976. We had bombogenesis up the eastern seaboard, and we were all excited, and we got hardly any snow where I was in State College, Pennsylvania. You look at the Great Blizzard of 1978 in the Central Plains, or excuse me, the Great Lakes, that was bombogenesis. So you know what's going on now is that some of the lingo that us weather geeks used to have 40, 50 years ago, it's getting out there, and it's about time. So it means that a rapidly developing storm. And the reason it's rapid to develop is because, remember, what nature does is she brings together a clash and then spreads it out. This storm 2 or 3 days from now will be much weaker than what it is right now, because nature did its bringing together, and then it'll spread back apart again.
Many parts of the country have certainly seen a rough winter. Will we have strong storms this spring?
Well, that's an interesting situation, because what we're going to see here is the core of this cold migrates slowly eastward, and probably the last 10 days of the month, what's left of this cold will be over the east. And then we anticipate May to be warm across much of the United States, especially some of the areas up, Midwest and on into the Great Lakes. And what I'm thinking is going to be, as far as severe weather goes, there'll be less than average tornadic activity, but more than the normal amount of rain. It's going to be another big growing season for the United States. Agriculturally, hopefully there's not too much rain. I don't think it'll be as bad as last year. But ever since 2012 and all the scary perma-drought, dust bowls coming back, predictions that there were, the weather, as nature loves to do, just turned the opposite way. So I think it's going to be a lot of wet weather, but I think the severe weather relative to averages will be below normal. But keep in mind, with the way tornadoes are, one just goes through one area, and everybody thinks that, it's the apocalypse. In reality, we're supposed to have these big severe weather outbreaks. Mm-hmm. And when you actually look at the data, Ephraim, yes, severe tornadoes have been decreasing over the last 40 to 50 years. All so right, there's a long answer for you.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Enjoy the weather. It's the only weather you got.
Mm-hmm. Want to turn now to the 2020 presidential campaign. Democrats are firing opening shots in a new battle over health care. Senator and White House hopeful Bernie Sanders is relaunching a new bid for his plan to eliminate private health insurance in favor of a single government plan. Even some of Sanders' Democratic opponents are supporting him, but Republicans say the plan is insanely expensive and would mean higher taxes. Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson is on the story.
Health care is a human right, not a privilege.
Today's unveiling presents the opening volley in a new fight.
Please do not tell us that this is a rational health care system.
Senator Bernie Sanders' vision: more affordable coverage that lowers the number of uninsured Americans.
Medicare for all is a dream.
But the dream comes at a price. The safety net could prove dangerously expensive. Independent studies estimate that over 10 years, the plan will cost anywhere from $25 to $35 trillion.
Medicare for none.
Majority Leader Mitch McConnell warns it's just the latest in a socialist bonanza.
That price is so steep that even left-leaning analysts are quietly admitting that the tax burden is virtually certain to land on the middle class.
People are suffering. At the Sanders liftoff party, a rival for the presidential nomination.
This has to become the next social safety net. It has to become something that is there for you no matter what.
Kirsten Gillibrand is one of 4 Senate Democrats running for president who back Sanders' idea.
You are creating a not-for-profit public option that is good, high-quality health care now.
While under the plan, some 180 million Americans would lose private health insurance. All would be covered under a public plan.
I can't imagine how we would pull them off of health care coverage that in most cases they like.
Other Democrats have backed away from Medicare for all.
It could be a possibility in the future.
The White House says Republicans are working on realistic solutions. President Donald Trump says, quote, a really great health care plan will be ready right after the 2020 election. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange is in police custody in London. He was arrested at the Ecuadorian embassy today for failing to surrender to the court in 2012. Assange took refuge there for the last 7 years until his asylum was revoked due to repeated violations to international conventions and daily life. He's accused of publishing thousands of classified military and diplomatic cables through WikiLeaks. The arrest comes just 1 day after WikiLeaks accused Ecuador's government of, quote, extensive spying operation against him. Attorney General William Barr told a Senate panel Wednesday he believes there was spying against Donald Trump's presidential campaign in 2016, and he wants to find out why it happened.
You're not suggesting, though, that spying occurred?
I don't, I guess you could, I think there's spying did occur. Yes, I think spying did occur. I am not saying that improper surveillance occurred. I'm saying that I am concerned about it and looking into it.
Barr wants to make sure proper procedures were handled in the origins of the Russian probe. Robert Mueller's 22-month investigation revealed the Trump campaign did not collude with Russia. Vice President Mike Pence has responded to likely Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg's criticism of his biblical beliefs on homosexuality. In an interview with CNBC, Pence said, he said some things that are critical of my Christian faith and about me personally, and he knows better. He knows me. Pence and Buttigieg worked together when Pence was governor of Indiana. Buttigieg is the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Pence said he understood why Buttigieg made his remarks because the Democrats are moving left and candidates are competing to see how much more liberal each can be. Coming up here on CBN NewsWatch, with the Israeli election finally over, many people are looking ahead to President Trump's upcoming Middle East peace plan. We're going to hear from a former mayor of an Israeli town about what could happen with that plan.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
With the Israeli election over, President Donald Trump is expected to unveil his Middle East peace plan soon. Some say it could be the deal of the century, while others fear, though, it may be nothing new, only more of the same failed ideas of the past. Appearing on the CBN News program The Global Lane, a former mayor of Shiloh, Israel, David Rubin, says little is known about President Trump's plan for peace, but he suggests if President Trump proposes dividing Jerusalem between the Palestinians and the Jews, the plan may be dead on arrival.
Nobody really knows what to expect. There are different possibilities. There's talk and there are rumors about the issue of borders, what it's going to mean as far as borders go. There's talk about the possibility that many of the so-called Palestinians, the Arab residents of Judea and Samaria, might be made Jordanian citizens, and a question of whether they would have to move to Jordan or not.
Now, Daniel Pipes recently wrote in a column mentioning the possibility of Jerusalem serving as the capital of both Palestine and Israel. Israel maintaining 10% of the so-called West Bank, Judea and Samaria, and the Palestinians 90%. So what do you think of that idea, David?
I think it's a ridiculous idea. That would be a non-starter, if I ever heard a non-starter. Look, you're not going to have peace based on falsehood and based on fiction and based on lies. And there is no peace that is going to be accomplished in this area without having a little bit of biblical, historical precedent. And when you talk about historical precedent and you talk about biblical accuracy, it's not going to happen unless Israel has sovereignty over all of Judea and Samaria. Netanyahu has spoken about, he promised right before the election that he's going to declare sovereignty Israeli sovereignty over the Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. So that's, that is a good first step. But the ultimate step that's really going to work is to declare Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, 100% of Judea and Samaria, and if necessary, having a path to loyal citizenship for those Arab residents of Judea and Samaria, and those who don't want to be loyal citizens, simply giving them a stipend and moving them over to Jordan. It's not going to work giving them 90% of Judea and Samaria.
Now you can hear more insights from David Rubin on tonight's edition of The Global Lane. It is on the CBN News channel. It begins at 9:30 Eastern. Still ahead, the Sea of Galilee is one of the most famous locations from the biblical stories of the gospel. But today, that historic body of water is in danger. We're going to explain why when we come back.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
It's what starts in Israel, then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torresadillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices. And watch God transform a generation.
The Sea of Galilee is where Jesus walked on the water, where he calmed the storms and called Peter to be his disciple. But this historic body of water is in danger. Overpopulation and years of drought are causing it to shrink. Chris Mitchell brings us the story now from Jerusalem.
More than 1 million tourists visit the Sea of Galilee each year, but the biblical lake is shrinking after several years of drought. This is the same Sea of Galilee that Jesus walked on. From out on the lake, it may look like there's plenty of water, but in reality, it's a different situation.
There are altogether 21 boats on the Sea of Galilee, and because the level of the water is so low, for example, in Genosar, instead of 3 piers, we use only 1.
Daniel Carmel owns 2 of those boats. He operates Sea of Galilee worship boats and takes Christian groups out on the lake for a unique worship experience.
They don't know how is the Sea of Galilee when it's full. This is the lowest that I ever saw. 25 years that I'm here, this is the lowest.
Israel's rainy season begins in late October and goes to mid-March. After that, it doesn't rain very much. This winter may have an above-average rainfall, but it's still not enough.
The lake is the main thing that characterizes, our life here from every point of view. Although today, unfortunately, we cannot make our living from fishing.
Uzi Velish was born in a kibbutz on the Sea of Galilee and has lived in the area since the 1930s. He's seen the lake at all different levels.
When my first daughter was married, it was 93, it was very full. The wedding was on the lawn here in front of my house. You can see it, about 200 meters. Okay. It will come up to the rocks. The rocks were put in there in the 70s to defend from the storm. There was a storm, east storm, and the waves chopped the soil, so they built these rocks.
He said trouble started when the British built a dam in 1932.
The moment you stop the Jordan, beginning to control. But only in 64, they added the big pumps that deliver the water from the Sea of Galilee to the south or to the middle of Israel.
On top of that, Israel gives Jordan 50 million cubic meters of water as part of the 1994 peace agreement, and Jordan is asking for more. The lake has been low in the past and recovered, like 30 years ago when the receding waters revealed a hidden treasure.
This boat is really completely unbelievable.
Dubbed the Jesus boat, the fishing vessel is like one Jesus' disciples would have used. Found in the mud on the shore, it soon became a national sensation.
That was really something. The whole state was a boat from 2,000 years ago. This is and with such a significance, that really can be related to Jesus,
Treasures aside, the Kinneret, as it's called in Hebrew, or the Sea of Galilee, used to be one of Israel's main sources of drinking water.
Until not so long ago, the Sea of Galilee was one of the 3 main natural sources that supplied water. Now it hardly supplies.
Growing population, increasing demand, and a lack of rain have all contributed to the situation. The lake is more than 15 feet below the full line. A rainy winter would normally add about 5.5 feet. Then it begins to evaporate again in the summer. Due to the length of the current drought, the Israeli Water Authority has stopped pumping into the main water system.
We cut down the pumping there from about 400 million cubic meters per year to less than 30. And nevertheless, the level of the water of the Sea of Galilee continues going down.
If the water level drops too low, the lake would become salty and eventually lost as a drinking source. That's why Israel tried a unique approach.
Israel planned and started building water carriers that will bring water from desalination plants to the Sea of Galilee in order to keep the level of the water high enough in order not to lose the Sea of Galilee as a drinking water pond.
Shore says they can't fill the lake completely with desalinated water because it would bring down the water quality.
I do not think that you have another lake in the world that people fill it with man-made water in order not to lose it. So we'll be pioneers about that as well.
Shore said once every 20 to 30 years, Israel gets enough rain to fully restore the Sea of Galilee in one season, but they can't count on it. In addition to not pumping water out and pumping desalinated water in, Carmel had this advice.
Pray hard for rains. That's what we need, a lot of prayers. Pray for rains, even when you're here.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And we'll be right back. Stay with us.
As the world watches from the outside,
it's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
It's what starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
Meet the pastors who are preaching the gospel in a fresh, fearless way. I'm Roberto Torres-Cedillo. Join me each week for Next Gen Voices and watch God transform a generation.
Time now for your Tuesday Tweetable, and Thursday Thankful rather, and today I leave you with this prayer of gratitude. Father, I thank you for closed doors and delayed opportunities. I want only what you want for me. Make that your prayer today, and indeed make this a thankful Thursday. That is going to do it for this very first edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more on the issues you care most about, always at cbnnews.com. And you can watch CBN News programs anytime throughout the day on the CBN News Channel. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing us. The email address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope you will join us again right here next time. Again, make it a thankful Thursday. We'll see you right back here come Friday. Goodbye and God bless.